that is what people might think of you, and maybe they are not even think of you that way. So you have to look at it from the positive way. I mean, how can I be in a relationship and not be hurt when it comes that I'm leaving, I'm not going to, sort of annoy my spirit or another spirit, or even my husband or my wife. I walk away with no problems, with no loaded heat on my, at my shoulder or my back of my head or something like that. You just move freely. Is what I'm trying to suggest here. You have no sense of responsibility to worry yourself, to tie yourself down in that way. You have your sense of responsibility to still hold yourself, have your soul intact, be an individual person, sharing a life with another person, and you don't need to necessarily make promises you can't meet. And definitely you can't meet those promises, so you don't even make it at all. Don't let some inspirational thing which has not any valid, authentic, basic person to lure you or make you convinced that you are meant to have done that. Don't your common sense tell you that you love this person or you don't love that person, or you are meant to be? Can't your own senses tell you, no, make you discover what you want and what you don't want? You have that. Do you need to go and make promise to somebody before you decide to let your mind decide, okay, I want to live with this person the rest of my life? Do you have to go and stand someplace and make some pledges? Why? Are you saying that without a pledge, you are not going to follow through? If your heart and your mind want to spend the rest of your life with a person, you don't need a third person inside that agreement. You just need to go ahead and do it. Just the same way you didn't go to make promise to anybody before you went through your education. Did you make any promise? No. You held on to it and you pursued it and you became a doctor or you became whatever. It's that same journey, the same attitude, the same procedure. In the process of that, you have your rough roads up and down, but you still pursue it. But we don't choose that option. Nobody. You didn't promise your father, or you didn't know that you probably might end up promising them. And most of the time, those who even promise their parents, they lost along the way line. They fall out of education, and they become worried. But most people who even get the qualifications, they don't even end up promising anybody. They just went through. It's a journey. It's out there. The opportunities are there. You're taking it. You're getting into marriage relation. It's also another opportunity. You're taking it. You don't need to go and make any pledges and oaths and all give yourself to any spiritual commitment or human commitment. You don't need all those bullshit. You just go in and be with the person and spend your life. As long as you know that I want to be with that person, take that channel, go through in it. You can live with that person as long as you don't live with that person. As long as you people want to be together, and you do not needed some inspirational words of what do you call it? You didn't need to be inspired by an oath or a promise or a swearing in words to somebody, a third person or a third divine entity before you decide to pursue. That means that swearing that you are going to do is what is going to tie you to the marriage. It doesn't necessarily mean that you really wanted to go in. Because look carefully, even when you go to the altar, you are being asked, do you truly want to marry this? Do you truly want to spend the rest of your life to that person? Because the person who is doing it knows that it is something that you have to willingly do. You didn't need to come here to do all this. This is something that you should have willingly do. You should have willingly, voluntarily decide to spend your life with that person, that you didn't need to come to the altar and make unnecessary promises. Because if it was necessary, they won't even ask you again. And sometimes you go there, and if we know God is omniscient and you know that you cannot really meet that target, you see that there is some fear on you. You can't even speak. You see some tension come upon you because you know that you don't really know, but you don't understand why that fear. Because something is telling you that the promise you are about to make, you don't have a clue what tomorrow will be. And since you don't know, you have no vague idea or vague picture of what is going to be in 10 weeks' time, why do you have to make a promise? If you have the discernment to know your future, then you have the right to make promises, because you are so sure that you will go through. You can spend your life with that person, but you don't. You don't have that discernment. So why do you do it? Anyway, those are all part of some of the points that we need to clear. But if we get these things adjusted well, I feel things will be changing for us. Things will be really changing to the right sense, so that those who are not lucky to be in certain situations will not feel isolated or left out. There are people who are out there who are not into certain, having the chance of going to pay for the life of another person, to spend their life with that person, so they become left out. What are they going to do? They spend their entire life, and even if they want each other, they cannot. You see kings and queens and whatever going in, rich people going in for what they want, or taking what does not belong to them. They're taking what they want. And sometimes you can realize that person belongs to somebody, but that person cannot be with that person because there is something that is being rejected, that is rejecting their unionship. And whatever is rejecting their unionship, we don't know. Maybe these people would have bring children into the world that will bring enormous change to life. But riches, somebody's richness and ability of being financially capable is standing in the way. There are so many funny things that happens in life. I'm just giving you a scenario to certain things for us to consider that will happen. But we have to accept that these are things that happens in life. Now, if we stick to the Jacob issue, and as I'm saying that Esau Jacob ended up marrying sending his go to Laban. That is the uncle, his uncle Laban, the brother of Rebecca, marrying his daughter. He chose one of his daughter that he has to, he said in his time he didn't go with a servant, wasn't sent. Isaac did not send a servant. He went himself because there was a conflict between him and his big brother. So his mother suggested again that they take him out of the house, so he go and look for a wife as a reason to leave the family. And then his brother, who was also at that time playing around with people who are not from the family, was the only issue. Because instead of him, Esau, listening to his father and going out there to marry one of his cousins, Esau chose to be with outsiders, people who are not. Why they were outsiders, I don't know. Because they are meant to also to be part of the family, because they all came from after Noah, the flood ended. It was the same family that was being, put out there. So for some reason they are being considered as outsiders because they don't practice or believe in Abraham or Isaac's God. They didn't accept. They were not like union. They were not in worship or in fellowship in that. It's the same way a Christian going to marry a Muslim, or a Muslim going to marry a Christian. They feel that it's an outside marriage, and they can allow it. It's there in the Quran. It's not encouraged for you to go and marry anybody outside the Islamic this thing. The women are not allowed to do that. Maybe the men are allowed, but not the women. For some reason, I don't know why. Because they want to keep their identity. It makes sense. But why would you restrict women and leave the men to do as they please? Because the writer was a man. So he does things to benefit the men. But some Islamic women also, they think it's a good idea. They've been pinned into their head. They see it as a good idea. So you leave them to whatever they have allowed themselves to accept. In the come to Christian world to the same. There's a similar advice but it is not direct. It tells you indirectly that, it makes sense that if you go and marry someone outside, you will struggle to convert that person. But it's also good because at the end of the day, you have been able to bring one person into the group by the chances that if you're able to convince somebody, if you are spending your life with that person, is great. Because maybe through your engagement, you end up convincing that person, bringing him to the faith. So it's allowed for you to be with other people. But for you to avoid the trouble and the disturbances and the conflict that will happen between yourself, if you cannot take it, then it's better to marry from Christianity, because you know that she was also a Christian, or he's also a Christian, so you are okay with that. Is it like an advice going here and there? It's not like the straightforward advice from the Quran. So in this case, he was sent also to his family, to sort of prevent the anger of Esau to strike at him, because Esau really meant to hurt his brother for what he did. But it was also Esau's fault. He wasn't thinking through when he was doing all that, but he didn't see that Jacob was was outsmarting him. But anyway, Jacob went there to get his one of his cousins to marry, so he was following the wishes of what Jehovah would have wanted them to do. in so many ways.